Good evening and welcome to the October 21st meeting of the Transportation Committee. We have members of our committee as well as members of staff here tonight, as well as a guest here before us. So Colliers Engineering has joined us this evening. So first order of business is call the meeting to order. Second, we have minutes from September 16th. Any comments, questions on those? I wasn't here.
I make a motion to approve.
And I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so those are adopted. We do have one new business item, and I'll cover that now, just so we dedicate the full time to Colliers. The supervisor had a recent meeting with some neighbors in the Peak Hill neighborhood off of Creek Street. They've got some concerns about signage within the neighborhood, maybe some confusion on direction and traffic. So that's something that we as staff that just came in will take a look at. So we'll, if hopefully the weather holds, put traffic counters out, gather some data, and then come back to this committee at a future meeting date. So just wanted to reflect to those neighbors. We did get that request. We'll follow up doing our data collection as we need to do, and then take a look at the counts and then come back to the committee with some further discussion at the next meeting.
Okay.
So with that, unless anybody else has any additional items, I'd like to welcome Tom Robinson. Welcome.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, I'm Tom Robinson. I'm a landscape architect and project manager with Colliers Engineering Design in the Rochester office.
I'm sorry, but could you pull the microphone closer to you?
Sure. That can slide up.
Thank you.
All right. Hopefully that's better.
That's great, thank you.
All right, excellent. I'm also a Penfield resident, so I'm very interested in this project. Avid bicyclist and pedestrian, so very interested in improving safety for folks in Penfield. Let's see.
We can have Amy click
No,
if
it's
clicking.
not working.
Through, yeah, you let me know and I'll click through, so let's give this a shot. There we go.
Okay, great. So a few things we'll look at tonight. I'll go over the general project status because the last time I was in front of this committee, I believe, was in April. So it's been several months. We've made a lot of project progress that I want to bring you up to speed on. We'll talk a little bit about the public outreach that we've been doing and that we have planned. We've had quite a good amount of public input so far. I'll give you a summary of the existing conditions analysis that we've performed, and then look at sort of our next steps and have time for general discussion at the end. Working. Great. So we started the project very early spring, 2025. The overall project will take about a year. We are more or less on schedule, which is great. We had our project kickoff in March. We had that first committee meeting with this group in April. Since then, we had a pop-up meeting at the 4th of July event. We had our first community workshop here in this building. And tonight, we're on committee meeting number 2. Yeah, that's fine. I'll just call it out. So I want to cover the public outreach a little bit. The public outreach has included a number of different meetings, including this committee. We had an online website as well, so I'll give you a summary of the data that we've had from that. And we've had a generally good stream of public input, including some stakeholder meetings. Next slide. One more time. Should I point there? Yeah. There we go. There's a good one. So the stakeholder groups that we've had so far, and these happened mostly earlier this month, we had one meeting with transportation agencies. So that included Monroe County DOT, NISDOT, as well as the Genesee Transportation Council. We had an additional stakeholder meeting with the school districts, both Penfield and Webster. We had, at the community center, we had a meeting for seniors, and we're planning another meeting with youth at the high school that's being arranged. We had an additional advocacy groups meeting with all the groups that you see listed on the slide there. So that was a very robust group, a lot of very interested folks. The thing that stood out to us is each of those different advocacy groups have their own interest in increasing active transportation. For some, it's carbon footprint and reduction of greenhouse gases. For others, it's more on the health and wellness end. Some are interested in recreation. So it really covers the gamut of everything we hope to achieve through this plan. So great to say that there's a lot of interest in Penfield from a lot of different directions for improving active transportation. A few of the key takeaways that came out of the stakeholder meetings, certainly safety and infrastructure improvements are top priorities, and that included a lot of discussions with the DOTs. But it was noted that it's not all about infrastructure. We're also looking at education, programs and policies, and enforcement all together to improve safety for folks who are bicycling and walking. The input from the public gives us a good idea where the gaps exist right now, so we're kind of prioritizing where to place our efforts. We learned a lot from the school district's meeting. The data says that only about 5 to 10% of Penfield students currently walk or bike to school. So there's a lot of room for improvement there. If we can make some incremental improvements, that'd be great, and the school districts are behind that. We know that interagency coordination is essential for success. So we're talking to the jurisdictional agencies early on. We'll keep them in the loop as we go. The county and state roads are essentially their property. So consider them landowners, and you need to address them and their interests the same way that you would a private property owner. So that's already begun, and we have a good group of folks to talk to at DOT. Education matters. So both on the side of the motorists, but also the pedestrians and the bicyclists, how folks interact and behave together is critical for success and for safety. And that need is increasing as new modes of travel come online, specifically micromobility like scooters and certainly e-bikes. It's changing the equation a little bit, and we really need to focus on the right rules of the road and how people keep each other safe. We'll be looking at funding opportunities for projects coming out of this plan. It was noted that Monroe County has a sidewalk funding program, which Penfield is already engaged in, and we see some opportunities for more use of that program to get sidewalks built in key areas of the town. I'll talk a little bit about our online survey. That's now closed, but we had a very good response. It was open for about 3 months. And we kept it open through the end of the stakeholder group meetings in case there was any uptick in interest in responses. But we had 688 responses, which is very good for a project of this type. We had targeted, we wanted to see at least 500, so we're happy with the turnout. And we're processing that data now and just starting to look at it, but we're already seeing some interesting trending responses. The next set of slides are very preliminary. They're like snapshots of the data. They're not the final displays, but just to have you look at some of the questions we ask and some of the things that we're finding out. The people who took the survey were overall Penfield residents. A high percentage were more than 20 years residents. But we had a significant portion of folks who don't live in Penfield but still want to walk and bicycle here for whatever reason. So that was an interesting distribution there. This slide shows you the major age groups that we had. So the largest one was 45 to 64, but we had a fair response from 25 to 44 with younger folks as well. So again, a pretty good spread, and we were happy to see that. We asked the question why you walk or bike and how often you do it, and these are some of the responses that you saw. In general, we have more people walking than bicycling, which is not a surprise, but it's good to sort of track and get down to the details of how that breaks down. The main reasons for walking and bicycling, you can see that on both sides, recreation and exercise is the #1 reason, and a smaller amount of things like running errands, commuting to school, and sort of a functional transportation comes in underneath sort of the health, wellness, and recreation aspect. We asked the questions, what are the barriers that are keeping you from walking and bicycling more? On both the walking and the biking, traffic, of course, is a major concern, and folks' safety-mindedness. Lack of sidewalks showed up on the walking side. Penfield's doing a good job of getting sidewalks out there in the network, but that takes time, and it happens gradually as funding allows. So there's certainly demand for improvement in those areas as well. We ask what type of improvements you'd like to see, what would help you bicycle or walk more, and the #1 response was more sidewalks. So sidewalks is a big thing. We're going to kind of drill down into that and see how we can help the town objectively prioritize where those segments want to go. But as the network matures over time, you start to see the important gaps. So we'll try to figure out how we can make some improvement there and have this plan be a stepping stone for growing the system a little bit. We ask, generally speaking, the transportation environment, what you would like to see that would make it more attractive for you to walk and bike in Penfield. Separation from cars ended up being the #1 thing. So folks want to have a good separation. I mean, we have fairly good bike space, widened shoulders and available space on a lot of roads, but you're still sharing the road with vehicles. So that's intimidating to, I'll say, most people. I bicycle commute, I'm used to it, but I don't like it. I'd rather be separated, so that'll certainly be a priority to see where we can achieve that. Some of the other things we ask about, shade from trees ranked pretty high. We certainly know that heat-related stress and shade in the environment is becoming more of a priority. I think that's especially true for pedestrians, so we'll be mindful of that in terms of recommendations that we can make for the pedestrian network. We ask what types of environment, what types of areas in the town you feel most comfortable walking and biking in. This one, we separated it out. On the walking side, it's roads with sidewalks, followed by neighborhood streets. And then on the bicycling side, just by a narrow margin, off-street trails ranked above roads with bike space or other facilities. So folks are very interested in trails and developing that aspect of the system in Penfield, I think both on the walking and on the bicycling side. So almost every question had an opportunity for write-in responses. So we have literally hundreds of individual written-in responses. One of the things the survey platform does is create word clouds out of those responses. This is just an example. We'll be making all the raw data available to the town. We'll probably try to sort of sort through and categorize the written responses and give you a summary, but you'll be able to see every single individual one. And you know, this is kind of an interesting summary when you get to see sort of the bigger words showed up more often in the responses is how that works. Okay, I'll go to the existing conditions analysis. We kind of combine soft data with hard data. So all the public input like we've been hearing through the various meetings and stakeholder groups and the online survey, is soft data that we combine with the hard analysis through GIS and desktop. But we don't underestimate the value of the soft data. That's telling us how people are feeling, and that influences how they use the network. So sort of that perceptive level to us is just as important as traffic counts, crash histories, and some of the harder data. We look at roadway jurisdiction. We mentioned county DOT and state DOT. They control a lot of the road grid in Penfield. On this one, the dark red lines are the state roads, and the green ones are the county roads. So you can kind of see that the state has sort of a macro grid that lays over the town, and then the county roads are a little bit finer level grid. But talking to them both and seeing what the opportunities are for improvements that are informed by the public input is the approach we want to take. And we're already engaged with that. Traffic volumes and traffic speeds are something we track and look at because that affects the level of service for pedestrians and bicyclists, and we pay attention to that, and it's going to help us prioritize recommendations as we go forward in the report. We also look at heavy vehicle volumes. That's a contributor to, especially to bicycle level of service, so we look at that and try to understand where that occurs most in Penfield. You can kind of get an idea here. So the red line, which is Atlantic, is your heaviest truck traffic in town. Sort of the mid-level are those yellow lines. And then, as you might expect, there's some roads that trucks try not to be on, like Panorama Trail, which is just a hard road to drive. So this is all data that comes to us through the DOT or Genesee Transportation Council, and we factor into our understanding of the road network. We get 5 years of crash data. You can see some of the clusters on this heat mapping. We do look at all types of crashes, and then we break out bike and pedestrian incidents just so we can understand if there's any particular locations that we should be paying attention to. One data set that's kind of interesting that we were able to work with the town to get is Strava. Strava is an app that bicyclists use to record their rides. So, understand that this is a certain part of the population, but it does help us understand where kind of your A-level bicyclists like to go in Penfield. We heard anecdotally from some of the public that, the far east side of town is very desired by bicyclists who are doing health and wellness and fitness riding. It's some great roads to ride on, so if you're that level of bicyclist, that's where you want to go, and the Strava data kind of backs that up for us. So some of these databases that are out there now that are free, we roll them into our analysis, just sort of on the theory that more data is good data. Together with the town, we selected 5 priority intersections to look at in a little bit more depth. So the 5 intersections, we tried to do a few things. We tried to get a geographic spread, and they're on this drawing, the little red circles are the spots that we chose. We tried to look at different types of intersections, and we tried to look at different jurisdictions. So, let's look at some that are state roads, county roads, town roads, or combinations of those. One of the things that we did for the priority intersections was to place digital time-lapse cameras. They're essentially trail cameras, like hunters use to track wildlife. They've gotten pretty sophisticated. They can be motion activated. You can program them to capture data at different times of day. But they give us a chance to look at really what's going on at these intersections, both in terms of spatial, but also in terms of temporal. So what times of day are we seeing different kinds of activity? How many people are crossing? If it's a marked intersection with crosswalks or crossing signals. We want to see what the level of compliance is. The cameras can tell us a lot. We've got all the data, and we're just starting to process it now. So the next step will be sort of showing what will happen, but I think I can give you a couple of examples. So we bought a new set of cameras, which were more advanced than our old cameras. They're called Spy Point Flex. Of course, being new, they had some glitches. So we ended up actually deploying some of these twice because the SIM card didn't work, but it's just, that's what you get with new technology. You always think it's better than the old stuff, but then you miss the old stuff that used to work flawlessly. But the data provides insights about pedestrians, bicyclists, and in some cases, student movements where we're close to a school district. And then it lists the dates that we got. That's a sample photo that you can see, and you just get an idea of what we do get to see. The beauty of the cameras is we can get as detailed with the information as we want. We can just count rough numbers of pedestrians and bicyclists, but if we want to know who they are or when certain groups are moving, we can look at that as well. So this is a draft, but this is the type of analysis that you'll see. This is Embry and Qualtrough. Essentially, thicker lines mean more movement, thinner lines are fewer people. So the legend explains that, and then you have a couple different colors for pedestrians and bicyclists. But what we track is what types of travel, how many people. We do get to see what time of day they peak out. But you can also see how they're moving across the intersection, and from where to where is the typical direction of travel. And then there's just some of the photos on the right are what the camera gets for us. So you're going to see a lot more of this. We're going to process all 5 intersections and then give you a summary. These are the type of insights that we try to get from the camera analysis. What were the active user groups? At this intersection, we saw runners and dog walkers. We noted how they move across this kind of oblique intersection. We noticed that most of the bicyclists we saw were on the sidewalk rather than the shoulder at this particular intersection. And then we note that we had many family groups and elderly groups walking on the sidewalks. The next one we're going to process is the camera we placed at the school crossing right at Bay Trail. So there's our RFB with the flashing user-activated school crossing. We're curious how that's getting used, if it's being used properly, and if drivers are respecting people using that crossing. So that'll be the next one that we really want to kind of get a look at and get a handle on. So all of that is part of our existing conditions. We also got some support from the Genesee Transportation Council, who are a stakeholder in this project. This project is town-funded, so the Genesee Transportation Council isn't funding it, but they are supporting it. They have infrared counters for trail counts, off-road trails, and they graciously placed 6 of those for us on different trails in Penfield. So we can get a little bit of baseline data about trail crossings. And those are the locations that GTC got some counts for us. We were in Channing Philbrook Park. We were in Shadow Pines, Rolfes Park, Thousand Acre Swamp, and Sherwood Fields as well. So it's nice to know sort of how often people are using these trails, but this also gives us a good baseline so that we can evaluate, a few years from now, if we make improvements, what the impacts are. That will also help us get grant money if we have data to indicate how these facilities are being used. This slide I really like. This one is your existing sidewalks. Those are the maroon lines, and then the existing trails that you have on public space in Penfield. So we start to see how those two systems can interact, and we've heard a lot about trying to provide access to some of the open spaces and connect some of the existing trail networks that are already out there in the parks. So that's a really intriguing possibility. I mean, you can see on the west side of town, that north to south green band that's really full of pretty robust trail systems. And maybe we could start to imagine, what if you could connect those with safe passage for bicycles and pedestrians? That could get really significant and really interesting. And then the other one that popped up, the same sort of idea sort of surfaced from the Town Trails Committee. That was the graphic on the left side. And then our group, just very early on, when we do what we call our opportunities mapping, identified the linkages from Shadow Pines, through the school district, through Rolfes Park, through Thousand Acre Swamp to this area. So that's very intriguing. We do a lot of large-scale trail planning, and to see that number of destinations kind of clustered together with a relatively small number of landowners is kind of promising. And it's just something we're going to look into and see what might happen in the future moving forward. Because we have heard from the public a lot of interest in growing the trails network in Penfield. So our next steps, we'll move quickly from the analysis and sort of our opportunities and constraints assessments to a set of draft recommendations for this committee and town staff and the project members to look into. We typically break down recommendations into 3 areas: on-road improvements, off-road improvements, and then programs and policies. And we've talked a lot about infrastructure and looked at images and photos, but the programs and policies really support the growth of active transportation in Penfield. And that includes a lot of different things. It includes maintenance. It includes education. It includes possible approaches to enforcement. It includes looking at town zoning and development guidelines relative to active transportation. So all those areas can kind of feed together to create a better environment and more transportation choices for people. That'll be happening this winter, basically. I think we're going to see this group again probably sometime in January, and we'll have a first look at these very early draft recommendations and start to talk about how we're going to evaluate those and prioritize them. And then we'll have a public open house with draft recommendations sometime in February, after we sort of, again, we don't want to present final, we want to present draft, because we want another good round of public input on the possibilities. So that's kind of the next few months and what we're looking at. And I think the project is moving forward very well. It's great to have all the public input, and we've had good cooperation from the stakeholder groups. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Tom, thank you for the presentation. It was a lot of great data and information and different, I'm impressed on just the trail cams of what data can be collected and what you can extrapolate from those and, synthesize that into actual facts on who's walking and where and when and bikes and everything else. That was new to me.
Yeah, those cameras are really very simple, but a very good tool. And I'll say every time we've deployed them, we get surprised. We always see something we weren't expecting, so we'll probably have that here too.
Nice. Any comments, questions from the committee?
No, that was great.
Really nice presentation. Informative.
Okay, great. Well, thank you.
I wanted to ask, not having this fully developed, how would you start to look at how you would separate vehicles
and bicycles for, like, rather than having bike lanes on the road? Because that was one of the items that came out of the survey.
Yeah, so there's a few different strategies there, and, the dream improvement would be a physically separated, like a cycle track or a multi-use path that's follows the roadway network but is separated. It's hard to find the space for that. So we're looking for those possibilities. If you can't do that, you start to look at, so an advantage Penfield roads do have is a lot of them have decent shoulder space. So we can work with the DOTs and see if they'll entertain maybe a little higher level of separation. It can be as simple as like a painted chevron buffer strip. So you get into a buffered bike lane rather than, and it doesn't have to be a designated bike lane. It can still be a shared use shoulder, but just either visual, physical, in some cases audible, so a rumble strip in some cases is a good separation. So we just try to increase that separation as best we can. But we'll look hard for opportunities to get the separated side path or the cycle track. Another approach that we'll take is use the neighborhood streets that are kind of inherently safer as, bike boulevards is a common term. City of Rochester has a good program for that. Town of Brighton has some, but you're just using the streets you already have that maybe can keep people off the main roads and make them feel a little bit safer. So there's a lot of different approaches we can take if we can't get our sort of highest level separated facility.
Tom, can you explain what a cycle track is for everybody that may not exactly know?
Yeah, it's just, it's essentially a bike lane or a multi-use path that can accommodate bikes and pedestrians, but it's physically separated from the roadway. So there's either there's
parallel to the road, but...
Yeah, parallel to the road, but no interaction with the vehicles except at road crossings. There's a couple in Rochester. There's one on Union Street downtown that was part of the Inner Loop redevelopment, so that's a good example. There's one by the U of R in College Town as well. So there's a few local examples. We don't have as many as we'd like, but it'd be great to see one in Penfield. That'd be cool.
Those are challenged with, I'm just trying to think of how to plow that. If it's separate from the road, normally you can plow the shoulder with a wing and a plow. Now you've got either delineators or, physical island between that. Does that create a challenge to maintain those separately?
It is if you want to keep them,
Snow season.
Yeah, if you plow them during the winter. And I'm not sure they are all plowed, because I ride on that Union Street one. I'm not sure they clear snow or just let it melt off.
Okay.
So you have options on the maintenance, but yes, to keep them winter use is an additional maintenance task, definitely.
Okay.
Once the draft is out, do you plan to have the same stakeholder meetings again, or would you just have the public information meetings?
We'll have the public information meetings. We won't. We don't have additional stakeholder meetings scheduled, but we'll transmit the draft information to those groups as well to get feedback from them.
Great.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions from the group? No? Well, I appreciate you coming out.
Oh,
Thank
yeah,
you
of course.
for all the information very much. And then as we get additional data, obviously we can share it with the committee and then, with the audience at home as well. So we appreciate the time and providing the update, and then hopefully as well for the residents at home. If they have questions, they can reach out to the engineering department. In the interim, we can answer questions, direct them to us, and then we can, filter it through you guys if there is questions from the general public.
We welcome questions and comments from everyone.
So, yeah.
Bring it on.
Great turnout with the 688 responses. So I thought that was a good job, and I said our communication team's been pushing it out as well as here at this committee to make sure everybody get out and responded. And obviously there's other opportunities in the future public hearing that, the conversation's not over. There's still opportunity for the public to comment and weigh in once you get some preliminary recommendations going forward.
Yep, absolutely.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome to depart if you'd like. We've only got a few other items, but whenever you're ready to go. Whenever you're ready to go. So knowing tonight was mainly focused on the active transportation plan, we kind of kept the agenda light for the other items. So I say we only have a few updates of, I did the new business item at the beginning. But we do have received some comments, traffic concerns, 25441. I mean, that's, I won't say typical, but we do get those fairly often, concerns about speed, safety through that. So we will be sharing that with the state DOT, having those look at those intersections as, they have before, but, making sure that, those comments and concerns are addressed. A left turn arrow at Plank and Creek Street. So this is a county road or county intersections. We did share that with the county.
There's arrows there now on Creek turning onto Plank. Those are brand new. I mean, within the last couple of week or two.
Okay. They may have reacted and added those.
Yeah, I
since
drove
I've
through
last
and I'm
gone
like,
through there,
oh my
so-
God.
Okay. There was a request for it, and I didn't even get a response that they were
Look at how
considering it or
powerful you
acting
are,
on
how
it,
much
so-
influence you have, and you don't even know it.
So, okay. Sometimes things happen fast.
So
Yeah.
I think the note that we got was that those arrows were added on the creek sides, but not on the plank,
Right, not on the
Good
plank
point,
side.
too.
and that's what's being
Gotcha.
requested.
Oh, okay, they want the other side to have arrows also?
Yes,
That's what
yeah.
they were saying.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. And then, again, on 441, there was some questions, concerns about speeds on 441 and also having a more consistent speed limit. I know it changes in some different areas, so they were looking at, can it be lowered and can it be, more of a consistent speed posted on the road? Again, not our jurisdiction, falls under the state DOT, so we'll share that request with the state and have them take a look at that. We still have a held item. We did have guests at the last meeting talking about the no parking signs in Woodfield. We are still in conversations with them and looking at, there's some alternative options to that. Did not get any further feedback from them or any other neighbors, after that meeting. And then we don't have them listed here, but we do have some other, the last meeting we talked about some site distance issues, Henderson, Kenmont. I know DPW was going to go out and either do some tree shrub trimming. I don't know if that's happened yet, or at least have the neighbor offer up to them first, and then us to do some trimming, and then we've got some follow-up site distance measurements to do once those are.
Yeah, we started on them this week with the rain coming in, so it's a good rainy day project to do.
Okay. So once we do those trimming, hopefully improve the site distance, then the engineering department can go back out. We can then do measurements and see if a stop sign is warranted, a yield sign is needed. First and foremost, there was just some overgrown vegetation that was causing those issues. So that's something that, we can circle back on and can come back before this committee once we get that additional data. Anybody else have any items to share? Okay. So say we do have, and for the committee, we adopted our new schedule. We did add that January meeting. Sounds like Colliers will be back then for their presentation after the first of the year, so that's just a new one for us. But at this time, our next scheduled meeting is November 18th. So seeing no further comments, I will adjourn this meeting at 5:41 PM. Thank you, everyone, for coming.